Tonight, the desert lies still beneath a sky full of stars. The great Sphinx watches quietly, half buried in sand and memory. Its stone face has seen centuries drift by, empires born and broken, kings remembered and forgotten, yet its gaze never fades. They say the Sphinx holds a secret older than history itself, one carved not only in stone, but in silence. And before we begin, I'd like to ask you something. What kind of dreams do you usually have? Write it in the comments below. I'd love to know what worlds your mind visits at night. Now, take a deep breath. Let your thoughts soften like sand beneath the wind. We're going to travel together through the mysteries of the ancient desert and listen for the quiet voice that still lingers beneath the Sphinx's timeless stare. If you enjoy calm journeys through forgotten worlds, consider subscribing, so you'll never miss the next story time whispers from history. In the deep hush of the Egyptian night, the sands breathe softly beneath a blanket of stars. The wind moves like a whisper across the plateau of Giza, brushing against weathered stone and ancient dreams. There, beneath the open sky, the Sphinx lies, part lion, part man, and entirely mystery. Its body, carved from a single mass of limestone, stretches long across the desert floor. The moonlight glides along its surface, tracing the scars of time, the softened lines of its ancient face. No one knows exactly when its eyes first opened to the world, only that they have watched longer than memory can hold. Long before pyramids gleamed in sunlight, before pharaohs built tombs to guard their names, there may have stood this guardian, silent and eternal. Some say it was born from the desert itself, a creature carved not by tools, but by wind and divinity. Others believe it was shaped by human hands to mirror the face of a king, a mortal who sought to be remembered in the form of a god. The Sphinx is stillness made visible. It does not move, yet it commands the desert. Travelers once approached it in reverent silence, believing it to be alive, a being that breathed only in dreams. They said its gaze could pierce through the veil of time, that its eyes saw both the world of men and the world beyond. As dawn approached, light would slide slowly across its face, igniting the stone with warmth. The desert would awaken, golden and infinite, and for a brief moment, the Sphinx seemed to wake with it. The people of the Nile believed that the rising sun, Ra himself, passed over this guardian each morning, blessing the world through its presence. But even the sun cannot know what lies behind those ancient eyes. Centuries have passed. The sands have risen and fallen, swallowing and revealing the Sphinx again and again. Each time it re-emerges, it feels like a resurrection, as though the desert remembers what humanity forgets. Imagine standing before it now, alone in the cool night air. The stars shimmer above you like the eyes of forgotten gods. The silence is vast, heavy yet peaceful. You look up, and for a moment, the Sphinx seems to be looking back. Not as stone, but as something living, something that remembers the shape of every story ever told beneath the desert sky. And in that silence, you might hear a voice, not with your ears, but within your mind. A thought that doesn't belong to you, yet feels older than your bones. A whisper that asks, "Do you remember me?" No one knows what the Sphinx guards, only that it guards something precious, something that has survived the storms of time, untouched and eternal. Perhaps it watches not over treasures, but over the dreams of humankind itself. The wind rises again, lifting grains of sand into the air. They swirl like ghosts, like memories caught between sleep and waking. The stars shift, and the Sphinx remains unmoved, watching, waiting, dreaming. And so begins our journey into its secrets, a descent not just into history, but into the quiet heart of time itself. The Sphinx has always been more than stone. To those who stood before it, the air itself seemed to shimmer, as if the boundary between the real and the divine had thinned. Ancient travelers wrote of strange stillness in its shadow, a quiet so deep that their hearts slowed, and their breath fell in rhythm with the wind. They believed they were standing before a living god. Over the centuries, names were given to this silent being. Some called it Horemakit, Horus of the horizon, believing it to be the earthly form of the falcon god who soared between worlds. Others saw in its face the likeness of a king, perhaps Kaffa, the builder of nearby pyramids. But beneath the myths and the chiseled lines of history, something deeper stirs. Something that belongs not to any one name, but to the mystery of existence itself. Time has weathered its surface, yet even erosion feels like reverence, as though nature itself refuses to erase it completely. Each mark, each crack, tells a story of endurance. Beneath layers of dust and light, it has survived conquest, neglect, and the rise of new faiths. It has outlasted all who once sought to define it. In the quiet of the desert night, the Sphinx becomes a dream given form. Some say that if you fall asleep at its feet, you might hear faint voices carried by the wind, the echo of prayers, or the murmur of forgotten kings. There are stories of travelers who awoke before dawn claiming to have seen its eyes move, glinting like stars, watching them with ancient patience. There's a legend that the Sphinx was once a guardian of knowledge, that beneath its paws lay the Hall of Records, a hidden chamber where the wisdom of lost civilizations was stored. Maps of forgotten lands, secrets of the stars, the language of creation itself. Many have searched for it, and some still do. But the desert guards its mysteries as fiercely as the Sphinx guards its silence. Perhaps that's the real truth, that the Sphinx isn't meant to answer questions, but to awaken them. To remind us that some mysteries are not puzzles to be solved, but invitations to wonder. Its stillness tells us that understanding is not always found in speech, but in silence, in the spaces between thought and breath. As the first light of morning breaks, the world begins to move again. The horizon blushes with color, and the Sphinx glows with soft gold. For a fleeting moment, it seems alive, breathing with the desert, dreaming with the dawn. And then, as quickly as the illusion came, it fades. What remains is stone, beautiful, silent stone. Yet even in that stillness, something lingers. The way a melody hums in the air after the music stops. The way a dream clings to your skin when you wake. The Sphinx holds that feeling, a memory of eternity, pressed deep into the heart of the earth. If you stand before it long enough, you might sense that it remembers you too. That across countless lives and lifetimes, you have stood here before, listening, wondering, searching for the same answer hidden in the same silence. And perhaps the Sphinx has been waiting all this time, not to tell us what it knows, but to remind us that we once knew it too. When night returns, the desert becomes a sea of shadows and whispers. The heat fades and the stars come alive, pulsing faintly like old memories. The Sphinx lies in that quiet expanse, its form half swallowed by darkness, its outline shimmering against the pale dunes. To the few who have stood before it beneath a moonlit sky, the moment feels like standing at the edge of eternity. Long ago, priests of the sun god came here to perform sacred rites. They burned incense, sang hymns, and left offerings at the feet of the Sphinx. They believed it was a threshold, a place where the spirit could touch the divine. In the flicker of torches, its shadow would stretch across the sand, vast and still, like the shape of time itself. They whispered their prayers into the night, and in return they listened not for words but for silence that spoke. Over time, the rituals faded. The songs were forgotten. The desert reclaimed its quiet dominion. Yet still, the Sphinx remained, watching the horizon as if waiting for something to return. The winds carried away the voices of the living, but they could not erase the weight of presence that clings to the stone. Even now, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the hum of devotion in the air, faint but endless. Archaeologists once found traces of paint on its surface, hints of red, blue, and yellow. The Sphinx we know as pale and ancient was once alive with color. Its face shone beneath the sun, its headdress bright as flame. Imagine that now, a radiant guardian rising from the sand, blazing against the morning light. Time has dimmed that brilliance, but its memory remains, invisible yet enduring. Legends say the Sphinx once spoke. that it posed a question to humanity, a riddle only the soul could answer. Some claim to have heard it in their dreams, though none remembered the words when they woke. Maybe that's because the Sphinx never spoke in language at all. Maybe its riddle was life itself, this fleeting, fragile existence between birth and death, between the dunes of time and the stars above. The desert knows the truth of impermanence. It builds and erases, buries and reveals, endlessly repeating the rhythm of creation. The Sphinx endures not because it resists this rhythm, but because it belongs to it. It is the still point around which time circles, the silence that gives meaning to the wind. And if you were to stand there now, alone in that silence, you might feel something stir within you, a faint remembrance. Not of history, but of being. The sense that the Sphinx is not merely watching, but remembering you, the part of you that once stood here long ago, under another sky, before the world was new. The stars shimmer above its head, ancient as the gaze that meets them. Somewhere beyond them lies the same mystery that shaped the Sphinx, the same presence that whispers to dreamers and seekers across every age. The desert will shift. The winds will carve and erase. But the guardian will remain, as it always has, as it always will. Watching over a world that forgets, dreaming the same dream for all who dare to remember. And so the story of the Sphinx begins, not with what it tells us, but with what it keeps. A riddle written in silence, a promise carved in stone, a secret waiting in the breath between stars. Before the Sphinx became a riddle, it was an idea, a dream born from stone and sunlight. Somewhere deep in the heart of ancient Egypt, a vision stirred. The desert was vast, unbroken, eternal. Yet to the builders of that age, it was not emptiness but a canvas, waiting to be shaped by devotion. They looked upon the limestone plateau of Giza, where cliffs met the open horizon, and they saw more than rock. They saw permanence. They saw a message that could outlast empires and sandstorms alike. And so began the thought that would become the Great Sphinx, a thought both human and divine. The quarrymen who first touched the stone could not have known the scale of what they were awakening. With bronze tools and the strength of countless hands, they carved day after day under a blazing sun. The work was slow, almost impossible, yet their persistence was a kind of prayer. Dust rose in golden clouds as the shape began to emerge, a lion's body, vast and powerful, merging with the head of a human, serene and eternal. Historians would later argue about who ordered its creation, Kafka perhaps, the pharaoh whose pyramid still stands beside it. But the truth feels older than names. The Sphinx belongs not to one man, but to the ancient longing to bridge earth and sky, to give form to the mystery of existence. Each strike of the chisel echoed like a heartbeat through the limestone. In that sound was both labor and faith, the belief that something immortal could rise from mortal hands. The artisans must have known exhaustion, yet also awe. To shape a guardian that would face the dawn forever was no mere task. It was an offering to eternity. The face they carved was not meant to look at them, but through them, toward the endless horizon. Its eyes were set in alignment with the rising sun, as if to greet the light of creation each morning. Even now, thousands of years later, the gaze holds. You can stand beneath it at sunrise and feel that same connection between heaven's fire and the stillness of stone. When the final strokes were done and the dust settled, silence must have filled the air. The workers stood before the colossal figure and felt something stir: pride, reverence, perhaps fear. They had given form to something beyond comprehension. And in that moment, they must have understood what the ancients meant when they spoke of gods walking among men. Over time, the Sphinx became more than a monument. It became a presence. Travelers who passed through the desert swore they felt its eyes follow them. Priests built altars near its paws, whispering to it as if it could listen. And perhaps, in its own way, it did. For stone has memory, and silence has voice if one knows how to listen. The desert winds began their slow, endless dialogue with the Sphinx, shaping and wearing it down grain by grain. Yet it endured, its features softened but never erased. The builders were gone, their names forgotten, but their work lived on, not as ruins, but as breath held in stone. Some say the Sphinx was never finished, that hidden chambers lie within, unopened since the day it was carved. Others believe its creation was guided not by men alone, but by something greater, an unseen intelligence that whispered through dream and desert. Whatever the truth, one thing remains certain. The Sphinx was born not from power alone, but from faith. A faith that the eternal could be touched, that meaning could be shaped by hands and left behind in silence. It was not built to be understood. It was built to be felt. And so, beneath the rising sun of a forgotten age, the first shadow of the Sphinx stretched across the sand, long, still, and eternal. A promise in stone, waiting for the world to remember. The Sphinx stood silent as the centuries began their slow drift. Its creation had ended, but its story had just begun. The builders were gone, their tools buried by time, yet the monument they left behind seemed alive, breathing through the heat of day and the cool sigh of night. To those who came after, it was more than stone. It was a question carved into the earth itself. Who had made this being, and why did it watch the horizon with such quiet patience? The Sphinx did not answer. It simply waited, as though the wind and the sun might one day reveal its secrets. In the early days, priests from the temple of Ra came to offer incense and song. They saw the Sphinx as the guardian of the rising sun, a divine sentinel marking the threshold between night and dawn. They spoke of it as Horemakit, Horus of the horizon, a god reborn each morning with the first light. Its gaze, fixed eastward, seemed to welcome the rebirth of life itself. Legends began to gather like dust around its feet. Some said the Sphinx spoke in dreams to those pure of heart. Others believed its shadow could bless or curse, depending on the will of the gods. And so, people began to come, pilgrims, wanderers, and rulers, drawn by the silent pull of its mystery. Over time, the sands crept upward, swallowing its paws, its body, and nearly its neck. The desert is patient. What man builds, the wind reclaims grain by grain. Yet the Sphinx never vanished completely. Its eyes, half buried, continued to watch the horizon. It was as though even buried, it could not be silenced. One day, long after the age of the pyramid builders, a young prince is said to have come to the Sphinx in a dream. He was weary, uncertain of his fate. As he slept beneath the shadow of the buried colossus, he dreamed that the Sphinx spoke to him, promising the throne of Egypt if he would clear away the sands that covered it. When he awoke, he did just that. His name was Thutmose Roman IV, and when he became pharaoh, he placed a stone tablet, the dream stele, between the Sphinx's paws, recording the vision that changed his destiny. That story, carved in hieroglyphs, still stands today. And whether the dream was real or not, its meaning endures, that the Sphinx, silent though it may be, still has a voice. Through dynasties and droughts, invasions and rebirths, the Sphinx remained. The Greeks who later came to Egypt saw in it something familiar and yet alien. To them, the creature resembled their own myth, the Sphinx of Thebes, the riddle giver who tested Oedipus. They gave it new stories, new meanings. They called it a guardian of knowledge, a keeper of secrets too great for mortals to bear. But the Egyptian Sphinx was never cruel, never a punisher. It was stillness made sacred, a meditation in stone. It asked nothing, demanded nothing. It simply endured, as though endurance itself were divine. Scholars today study its erosion, its construction, its alignment with the stars. Some claim it is older than history itself, that it predates the pyramids by thousands of years. Others hold that it was always tied to Kaffa, a monument to his reign. Yet despite all theories, the Sphinx resists clarity. It is both known and unknowable, open and hidden at once. Perhaps that is its true power, not in revealing answers, but in keeping the questions alive. At twilight, when the air cools and the colors soften, the Sphinx seems to change. Its face, worn by wind and time, glows faintly with the last light of day. In that hour, one might almost believe it remembers everything. The songs of the builders, the prayers of the priests, the dreams of princes, the silence of centuries. The desert breathes around it. The stars return one by one. And the Sphinx, eternal watcher of the horizon, waits still, not for answers, but for the next dreamer to stand before it and wonder. As night folds itself across the desert, the Sphinx becomes a shadow among shadows, a whisper of stone beneath the moon. Its silence deepens, older than language, older than even the memory of kings. The wind drifts softly across the plateau, carrying with it the faint scent of sand and distant stars. In the hush of the night, it feels as if the entire desert is listening. No one truly knows who first imagined the Sphinx. Some say it was Kafka's vision, a monument to eternity. Others whisper that it was far older, born from a forgotten age when gods still walked among men. Beneath its paws, archaeologists have found traces of earlier stonework, suggesting that perhaps the Sphinx was not built by one hand, but shaped and reshaped through time, as though each era sought to rediscover what the stone already knew. There are marks upon its surface that speak of repair, of worship, of rediscovery. Pharaohs of later dynasties carved offerings at its feet, their names joining the chorus of those who came before. In their devotion, they saw the Sphinx not as a ruin, but as a living bridge, connecting their fleeting lives to something vast and eternal. Even as empires changed and faiths shifted, the Sphinx endured. When the desert swallowed it again, it did not resist. The sands are its shroud and its sanctuary. Centuries later, travelers from Greece and Rome would stand before the half-buried face and wonder what god it represented. They asked questions in a language the Sphinx did not answer. It had already learned the art of silence. To the mystics of later times, the Sphinx became a symbol of hidden wisdom. They said that to look upon it was to confront the mystery of the self, half human, half divine, gazing forever into the unknown. Artists drew it in their scrolls, poets wrote of its calm defiance, and philosophers imagined it as the gatekeeper of truth itself. Yet through all of this, the Sphinx remained unchanged. It cared nothing for names or interpretations. It watched the horizon, the stars, the endless passage of dust and time. Its only task was to endure, and in that endurance it taught its own quiet lesson. At dawn, when the first light touches its face, there is a moment, brief and delicate, when it seems to awaken. The sand glows gold, the air stills, and for an instant, the Sphinx appears not as stone, but as breath. The ancient builders might have seen that moment as the union of heaven and earth, a reminder that even in silence, something eternal speaks. The Sphinx has seen the Nile shift its course, seen temples crumble and rise again. It has watched priests chant hymns to gods whose names are now forgotten. It has endured storms, invasions, and the unending patience of the desert wind. And still it waits, unblinking. Some say that if you stand before it in the stillness of night, you can hear a faint hum beneath the sand, the echo of the chisels that shaped it, or perhaps the heartbeat of the world itself. Others believe the Sphinx dreams, as all ancient things must, and that in its dreams lie the secrets of the ages. Whatever truth rests beneath its silent face, the Sphinx remains, a question in stone, a riddle not to be solved, but to be felt. And as the sun rises once more over the Giza plateau, its light brushes the worn lips of the guardian. The desert awakens. The wind stirs. The timeless watcher gazes eastward, toward the light that never truly dies. Beneath the Sphinx, the desert keeps its own kind of silence, a silence so deep, it hums like a thought too ancient to name. The sands seem still, yet they shift endlessly, layer upon layer of forgotten time. For thousands of years, people have wondered what lies beneath that colossal guardian, whether empty rock, sacred halls, or something more mysterious still. The earliest whispers of a hidden chamber began not in modern science, but in ancient faith. The Egyptians believed the earth itself was alive. that below the surface ran channels of divine power, the breath of the gods flowing unseen. To them, the Sphinx was no mere sculpture, but a vessel of that force, rooted deeply into the bones of the world. Beneath it, they imagined a heart, a chamber of silence where heaven and earth touched. Priests once came to the plateau at dawn, tracing symbols into the dust as the sun climbed over the horizon. They spoke softly to the stone, believing the Sphinx could hear their prayers. Perhaps they thought, if the gods wished to answer, the earth would open and reveal its light. But the Sphinx never moved. It remained still, guarding whatever truth lay hidden beneath its paws. Centuries passed. Empires faded. The sands thickened around the monument like sleep. And yet, the idea of something buried below, something waiting, endured. Even when scholars of later ages dismissed the old tales as myth, the story refused to fade. In the 19th century, when explorers and archaeologists arrived with maps and shovels and the hunger to uncover what the ancients had left behind, they too felt the pull of the legend. Beneath the Sphinx, they thought, might lie a hidden vault, a library of wisdom, or a tomb of forgotten kings. Some claimed to hear hollow echoes when they struck the ground, as if the earth itself were hiding an empty space. The rumors deepened with time. Strange writings and ancient prophecies spoke of a hall of records, said to contain the knowledge of a civilization older than Egypt, the lost wisdom of Atlantis. According to those who believed, the Sphinx was its guardian, built to protect the entrance to that secret chamber until the world was ready to remember. The idea was intoxicating. Scientists, mystics, and dreamers all came to the Giza plateau, each hoping to be the one who would awaken the secret. Some brought instruments, others prayers. Some dug too eagerly and found nothing but stone. Others stood quietly, sensing that what they sought was not meant to be taken, but felt. In the 20th century, new technologies gave the old myth new life. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys revealed anomalies, voids beneath the Sphinx and the plateau, chambers that no one could fully explain. Were they natural cavities, or something more? The data was uncertain, but the imagination was not. People once again began to whisper that perhaps the ancients had indeed left something behind, and so the legend persists, part science, part dream. Beneath the Sphinx lies a mystery not yet seen, not yet understood. Perhaps it is only stone and sand. Or perhaps, hidden below, there is a chamber where time itself holds its breath. At night, when the stars stretch endlessly over the desert, it's easy to believe the Sphinx remembers. It has seen so much, and yet it keeps its silence. Maybe it is not waiting to be understood. Maybe it is waiting for us to listen. The idea of the hidden chamber has never truly left human thought. Each generation seems to rediscover it, drawn by the same quiet magnetism that the Sphinx exerts on the soul. The desert may appear barren, but beneath its stillness we sense something alive, a whisper, a pulse, an echo of meaning just beyond reach. Long before modern explorers came with machines and instruments, the people of Egypt told stories of underground worlds, cities of light buried deep beneath the sand. The priests of Heliopolis spoke of hidden sanctuaries where the gods stored their wisdom, sealed until the time when humankind would once again be pure enough to receive it. To them, the Sphinx was the gatekeeper of that sacred threshold, guarding the line between revelation and forgetting. In the golden light of dawn, the monument's eyes catch the sun as though they awaken for a moment. To stand before it is to feel that something vast and wordless is being communicated, not through speech, but through stillness. And perhaps that is why so many have searched below. They believe that what the Sphinx will not say aloud, it may have hidden beneath its feet. In 1926, French archaeologist Émile Barrès undertook a massive restoration project. As his workers cleared the sand, they discovered passageways cut into the bedrock beneath the Sphinx and nearby temples. Some were ancient drainage shafts, others unfinished tunnels leading nowhere. But the very presence of these openings rekindled old myths, that the Sphinx was hollow, that it guarded a hidden room. Barrays sealed the shafts again for safety, but the questions they raised were never buried. Decades later, new explorers returned, scientists armed with radar and geophysical scanners. In the 1990s, a series of seismic studies by teams from Japan and the United States found curious anomalies beneath the Sphinx's pores and to its south. Some readings suggested chambers, symmetrical and deep. The data was unclear, but it was enough to spark wonder. Were these natural voids, or something crafted by human hands long forgotten? To some, the results were proof that the ancient texts had spoken truth. They called it the Hall of Records, a library said to hold the story of humanity's first age. According to legend, it was built by survivors of a great flood, long before Egypt's first dynasty. The Sphinx, they said, was the marker, the guardian, placed there to keep the memory safe until humankind was ready to remember. To others, it was nothing but a beautiful illusion, a mirage of belief projected onto stone. They argued that the voids were geological, formed by groundwater erosion or ancient earthquakes. The Sphinx, they said, held no chambers, only the mystery we ourselves gave it. Yet even the skeptics could not help but feel something when they stood before it, a sensation that logic could not fully explain. And so, science and myth stand side by side, staring into the same silence. The truth beneath the Sphinx remains unseen, waiting somewhere between imagination and stone. At night, when the moon climbs above the plateau, the Sphinx seems to glow from within. Its shadow stretches far across the sand, long and still. The desert wind hums softly through its eroded face, and one might imagine that beneath that calm exterior, ancient doors still wait, not of stone or metal, but of memory. Perhaps the chamber everyone searches for is not beneath the monument, but within the hearts of those who seek it. After all, the Sphinx has always been a mirror, reflecting not what lies below the ground, but what lies within the soul that wonders. As the desert night deepens, the Sphinx becomes more than a monument. It is a threshold between worlds. The stars above shimmer in silver silence, and the sands around it seem to ripple like a slow, endless sea. Beneath its pores, the earth holds secrets older than memory, and for anyone who stands here quietly, the weight of time presses gently against the mind. Throughout history, explorers have tried to uncover the chamber. Some dug with shovels, others scanned with the latest instruments. Each attempt brought hints, shadows, and anomalies, fragments of possibility, but never the full revelation. The chamber remained elusive, like a thought that refuses to be grasped, a dream remembered only in fragments. Ancient priests, who whispered their prayers to the Sphinx, believed the chamber was sacred, a repository of divine knowledge. They imagined scrolls of wisdom, records of the stars, and truths about creation hidden in its darkness. Yet the Sphinx gave no answers. Its silence was its message, teaching that some things are not to be known, only felt, and that the journey to understand is as meaningful as understanding itself. Legends tell of those who claim to have glimpsed it in dreams. They spoke of corridors lined with golden light, walls etched with symbols that hummed with life, and a quiet presence that seemed to know them, as though it remembered all who sought it. When they awoke, the memory was fleeting, impossible to describe, yet the sensation lingered, a gentle reminder that the Sphinx guards mysteries meant for more than the eyes. The sands continue their slow encroachment, covering and uncovering as the centuries pass. The Sphinx, steadfast and silent, watches over this rhythm. It has endured earthquakes, invasions, and the relentless wind, yet it remains, a sentinel over both the past and the possibilities that lie beneath. Its gaze follows the horizon, unchanging and eternal. Modern science debates the chamber. Seismic surveys suggest cavities. Geological studies propose natural formations. But no tool can measure the sense of awe, the pull of imagination that the Sphinx evokes. Perhaps that is the chamber's true secret. Not a hidden room beneath the earth, but the awakening it inspires within the human heart. Even now, if you stand at its feet under a quiet moon, you can feel it, the hush that comes with centuries of observation, the soft echo of hands that built it, prayers that circled it, and dreams that have hovered over it. Every whisper, every heartbeat, every fleeting thought of humanity seems to linger in the air, pressed gently into the stone. And perhaps in that stillness, the chamber exists not as a physical space, but as an idea, a truth hidden in plain sight, a testament to patience, mystery, and the enduring power of wonder. The Sphinx waits as it always has, and the desert stretches endlessly, carrying its secrets across time. The night deepens, and the monument glows faintly beneath the stars, a guardian of silence, a keeper of questions, and an invitation to dream. The hidden chamber remains unseen, untouched, yet it is present in the stones, in the sands, and in the hearts of those who come to wonder. And in that presence, the Sphinx whispers a truth more profound than any treasure. Some mysteries are eternal, and in their pursuit, we find the deepest part of ourselves. The Sphinx has never stood alone. Across the centuries, people have journeyed through the desert, drawn by its gaze, seeking guidance, blessing, or simply the quiet presence of something eternal. These were the pilgrims, travelers who braved the shifting sands and scorching sun, their feet leaving temporary marks on the land, while the Sphinx remained unchanged. In the earliest days, pilgrims arrived from the villages along the Nile, offering simple gifts, grains, flowers, and words of reverence whispered into the wind. They believed that the Sphinx, as Horemakhet, could carry their prayers to the gods. Each visitor brought a story, a hope, a question, and for a fleeting moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath. Some pilgrims were priests, coming to perform sacred rites. They traced intricate symbols in the sand and sang hymns as the sun rose. Their voices, rising and falling, mingled with the desert wind, carrying devotion across the plateau. In those moments, the Sphinx seemed alive, not moving, but attentive, as if it recognized the sincerity of every prayer offered at its feet. Others came as seekers of wisdom. Travelers from distant lands, merchants, scholars, and even foreigners who had heard whispers of its power, crossed deserts and mountains to stand before the Colossus. They gazed at its face, tracing the lines of stone as though they might read the secrets carved not only in limestone, but in time itself. Some believed that a word or gesture at the right moment could elicit a vision, a sign, or a dream that would change their lives. The journey itself was part of the pilgrimage. The desert was harsh, and every step tested endurance and faith. Sandstorms could erase paths and obscure horizons. The sun would blaze without mercy, yet each traveler pressed on. They believed that to approach the Sphinx was to confront eternity, to step into the quiet heart of the world where the mortal and the divine could meet. At night, camps would light small fires, and pilgrims would speak of the stories that had brought them here. Tales of kings and pharaohs, of gods and forgotten lands, mixed with the personal hopes of those present. And sometimes, in the stillness between conversations, the desert itself seemed to respond, a rustle of wind, a distant shifting of sand, a feeling that the Sphinx was listening. Children accompanied their parents, their eyes wide with wonder. Merchants paused in their trade to bow before the monument. Poets and storytellers lingered, sketching or writing, capturing the silent majesty of the Sphinx in words and images. Each person, regardless of background, became part of a shared rhythm, the act of witnessing, of remembering, of acknowledging that some things in the world are eternal. Pilgrims often spoke of dreams that visited them after standing at the Sphinx's feet. Some dreamed of soaring across golden sands, guided by a guardian with a lion's body and a human face. Others saw cities of light beneath the desert, corridors lined with symbols, and halls of wisdom long forgotten. Upon waking, the details faded like mist, but the sense of wonder lingered, a reminder that the pilgrimage was not just a journey of distance, but a journey of the heart. Through all these centuries, the Sphinx remained constant. The hands that had carved it were long gone, the temples built beside it in ruins, yet the presence endured. Every pilgrim, every traveler, every dreamer added to its story, weaving invisible threads of devotion, curiosity, and hope into the fabric of the desert. And so the pilgrimage continues, a quiet, ongoing ritual of wonder. Those who stand before the Sphinx today feel the same pull as those who came thousands of years ago. The sands may shift, empires may rise and fall, but the Sphinx endures, and with it, the timeless journey of those who seek the eternal. As the sun rises over the Giza plateau, the Sphinx casts a long, quiet shadow across the sand. Pilgrims who arrive at this hour often pause, feeling the stillness before the desert awakes. Each step toward the monument is measured, deliberate, as though the ground itself requires respect. The wind carries whispers of centuries past, voices that once prayed, sang, or murmured stories into the open air. Travelers spoke of the Sphinx as a teacher. Its face, worn by time, seemed to reflect the questions they carried within their hearts. Some came seeking guidance about kingship or trade, while others searched for answers to matters that could not be spoken aloud. In the calm of dawn, beneath the vast sky, the Sphinx seemed to absorb their thoughts, leaving them lighter, more certain, or at least more willing to continue the journey. The pilgrimage was never easy. Hot sands burned feet, and storms could rise without warning, blinding even the most steadfast. Yet those who persevered believed that the Sphinx demanded nothing but sincerity. The journey itself was the offering, the act of showing devotion through effort, of seeking wisdom through patience. Each person who arrived carried not only their own hopes, but those they had left behind, woven into the pilgrimage like invisible threads. Some pilgrims left offerings. Flowers, grains, small statues, or tokens of gold placed carefully at the feet of the Colossus. Others left written prayers or carved inscriptions into the stones of nearby temples, knowing the Sphinx would witness the gesture, silent but aware. Each offering was a conversation, not with words, but with presence, with attention, with the recognition that the Eternal might hear them if they were earnest enough. At night, fires were lit and stories shared around their glow. Travelers recounted what they had seen, what they had felt, and sometimes what they had dreamed. Dreams were considered gifts from the Sphinx, brief visions that carried messages too subtle for waking minds. Children would hear these stories and fall asleep beneath the stars, imagining the guardian's eyes following them, protecting them as the desert whispered secrets to the wind. Merchants paused their journeys to stand in awe, poets sketched and wrote, priests performed ritual acts, and scholars studied its proportions, alignment, and history. Every visitor, whether guided by curiosity, devotion, or necessity, became part of the ongoing story of human connection with this immense monument. The Sphinx's gaze, fixed eternally eastward, seemed to measure each heart that came before it. The pilgrim's journey did not end at the base of the Sphinx. Many returned home changed in subtle ways. Some carried a quiet confidence, a sense of purpose renewed. Others returned with questions that could not yet be answered. Yet the act of seeking brought a clarity of spirit that no teaching could provide. And in all cases, they carried the memory of the silent guardian, whose stillness had taught them patience, reverence, and the importance of looking beyond themselves. Even in silence, the Sphinx communicates. Its very existence reminds those who approach it that time flows differently in the presence of what is eternal. While empires rise and fall, while cities crumble and are reborn, the pilgrimage continues, woven through the centuries, connecting every traveler to those who came before. In this quiet communion, each pilgrim becomes both seeker and witness. They add their own story to the vast tapestry of devotion, curiosity, and wonder. And in the desert night, Beneath the stars that have shone on millennia, the Sphinx endures, a silent, unwavering companion on every journey. The desert night deepens, and the plateau becomes a world suspended between stars and stone. The Sphinx, still and eternal, watches over all who approach, its gaze fixed on the horizon. Pilgrims resting at its feet feel a quiet presence, not as instruction, but as recognition, a sense that their journey, their devotion, and their wonder are acknowledged, held gently by the monument itself. Many came in search of answers, but few left with words. Instead, they carried impressions, a feeling of weightless awe, a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. The Sphinx does not speak. It does not grant visions or prophecies in the waking world. Its language is subtle, communicated through silence, through scale, through the hum of wind across sand and stone. Those who pay attention find that the answers reside not in revelation, but in reflection. In the quiet of night, pilgrims often dream of the Sphinx. Some dream of walking its length, of touching paws that stretch farther than imagination allows. Others see corridors beneath it, golden halls where symbols glow softly in the darkness. These visions are fleeting, dissolving upon waking, yet they linger, a reminder that the monument is not just an object of stone, but a vessel of the mind's deepest wonder. The offerings left at its feet, flowers, grains, small carved figures, do not decay in spirit, even if the sands reclaim them. Each act of reverence, each whispered prayer, becomes part of the Sphinx's story, a record etched invisibly into time. The pilgrims themselves, though mortal and fleeting, are woven into the monument's eternal rhythm, their journeys echoing in the silence it keeps. The Sphinx has witnessed generations come and go. Pharaohs and priests, travelers and dreamers, conquerors and scholars, all have paused before it, humbled by its scale, drawn to its gaze. Each person contributes a layer to its presence, a layer of human attention and devotion that spans centuries. And though they depart, the monument remembers, not as humans remember, but as the desert remembers, patiently, persistently, with quiet endurance. Even when storms arise, scattering sands over its paws, the Sphinx remains steadfast. Its patience teaches those who observe it that endurance is a kind of wisdom, that mysteries do not always yield to force, and that some truths are revealed only in time. To stand before it is to experience the rhythm of history itself, slow, immense, and unhurried. Modern visitors feel it too. Standing there under the scorching sun, or the soft glow of twilight, they experience the same pull that drew ancient pilgrims. There is a humility, a stillness, a sense of being part of something far larger than themselves. And for those who reflect deeply, a question arises. What do I carry within that deserves the recognition of the eternal? The Sphinx does not answer this question. It does not need to. Its power lies not in explanation, but in the space it creates for contemplation. Every pilgrim, every observer, every dreamer is invited to step into that space, to feel the weight of time, and to understand in their own way the importance of reverence, patience, and wonder. As dawn creeps over the horizon, the first rays of light touch the Sphinx's face, casting it in gold and shadow. The desert stretches endlessly, and the pilgrims rise, leaving only footprints that the wind will reclaim. The Sphinx endures, silent yet present, a witness to devotion, a keeper of stories, and a guide for those who seek to understand not with their eyes but with their hearts. And so the pilgrimage continues, century after century. The Sphinx watches, waiting not for answers, but for the sincere curiosity and courage of those willing to journey across sand and time, to stand before it, and to wonder. Time is patient, and the desert is patient, but neither are infinite. The Sphinx, eternal though it seems, has not escaped the slow erosion of ages. Once its face was sharper, its body taller, a sentinel carved in full strength and majesty. Today, wind and sand, flood and storm, have softened its features, and the Sphinx stands as a monument to endurance and fragility alike, Ancient visitors might have seen it in its full glory. The paws stretched wide, the head held high, eyes fixed eternally toward the horizon. It must have seemed invincible, a bridge between mortal ambition and divine permanence. Yet even then, the Sphinx was at the mercy of nature. The limestone beneath it is soft, vulnerable to wind and rain, and the desert carries a slow, ceaseless patience. Time itself began its subtle work long before any human interference. Throughout the centuries, the Sphinx witnessed empire after empire rise and fall. Pharaohs built temples and offered prayers, only to see their names and deeds fade into memory. The sands buried and revealed parts of its form, as if reminding humanity that even greatness is fleeting. Travelers, pilgrims, and scholars all remarked upon its decay, yet each generation discovered something renewed in its presence, a sense of awe, a question unspoken, a reflection of their own mortality. In certain eras, neglect accelerated its decline. Temples crumbled, rituals were forgotten, and the Sphinx lay half-buried beneath sand and debris. Some believed this abandonment was a kind of punishment, a warning against pride, a reminder that even monuments meant to endure could succumb to the elements and to human forgetfulness. Others saw it as a quiet teaching. That time rewards patience, but spares no one from its passage. Historical records tell of attempts to restore it. Pharaohs and later rulers ordered sand to be cleared, structures to be reinforced, yet each effort could only slow what time and nature demanded. The wind carried away dust, storms chipped at stone, and the sun baked the limestone, softening its edges. Even as humans tried to preserve it, the Sphinx continued its slow surrender to the desert. Legends arose alongside its erosion. Some spoke of curses for those who would try to defile it, of the Sphinx mourning the loss of its own perfection. Poets imagined that the cracks and scars were tears, each a memory of the centuries it had witnessed. The Greeks, fascinated by its enigmatic gaze, created stories connecting it to riddles and mysteries, suggesting that the fall of its form mirrored the decline of understanding and wisdom in humankind. Yet in its fragility, there is power. The softened features of the Sphinx evoke empathy and reflection. To look upon its weathered face is to see the passage of time embodied, to sense both strength and vulnerability, permanence and impermanence, mystery and the inevitable erosion of certainty. Even as the desert continues its slow claim, the Sphinx endures in spirit. Every grain of sand carries echoes of its original majesty, whispers of those who built it, and the awe of every pilgrim who stood before it. Its fall is not complete, for though the stone wears, the story and presence remain alive in memory, in imagination, and in the quiet wonder of those who gaze upon it. As the sun rises over the plateau, the shadows stretch across its eroded body. The Sphinx has seen the world change beyond recognition, yet it remains, teaching humanity not only the beauty of creation, but also the humility of decay. For even in its fall, it is a monument to endurance, to mystery, and to the eternal dialogue between stone, sand, and time. The Sphinx has always stood at the threshold of human imagination, and yet, as centuries passed, the weight of the desert began to press upon it. Wind scoured its body, grains of sand eroding stone inch by inch, century by century. Time left its mark, subtle yet unrelenting, shaping the Sphinx into a figure both magnificent and fragile. Those who came to gaze upon it could sense its history not only in the carvings and proportions, but in the very texture of the stone, worn smooth by patience and storm. Empires that once revered the monument faded into history, leaving behind traces of devotion that the wind and sun slowly reclaimed. Temples crumbled, statues were toppled, inscriptions worn away, and the Sphinx itself began to bear the scars of neglect. The desert, ever patient, seemed to conspire with time, a reminder that nothing, not even stone, can resist the passage of years forever. The fall of the Sphinx was not sudden, but gradual, almost imperceptible. Travelers of later ages wrote of its half-buried pores, of a face weathered and cracked, yet somehow more profound in its imperfection. Poets and historians alike found inspiration in its decay, seeing in it a mirror of human ambition and mortality. Its erosion became a story, a lesson inscribed not in ink, but in the lines and shadows of stone. Even so, human efforts to restore and preserve it were relentless. Pharaohs and rulers attempted repairs, clearing sands and propping up what could be propped. Yet each generation found that nature had its own rhythm. Windstorms scattered dust over restored sections, rain seeped into fissures, and the sun continued to bake and soften the limestone. Preservation was possible only to a degree. The Sphinx's slow surrender to time remained inevitable. Legends multiplied around its decline. Some whispered that the Sphinx's erosion was a reflection of human forgetfulness, that as mortals neglected the sacred, the guardians of memory began to fade. Others imagined that the cracks and missing features were deliberate, a secret code, a puzzle left for those with patience to decode. The Greeks and Romans, in their fascination, added their own interpretations, weaving myths of riddles and guardianship that entwined with the monument's reality. Yet the Sphinx, in all its vulnerability, retains an enduring power. Its face, weathered and softened, seems to hold more wisdom than the unscarred perfection of youth. It invites contemplation, reflection, and humility. To stand before it is to understand that beauty and meaning are not measured by flawless form alone, but by the endurance of presence, the weight of history, and the quiet dialogue between stone and observer. Even now, as dust settles over its pores and sun bleaches the limestone, the Sphinx commands reverence. The fall is evident, but it is not defeat. In every crack, every eroded line, there is a story of centuries witnessed, of civilizations risen and faded, and of those who pause to marvel at its silent gaze. Its decay becomes a bridge between the past and present, the human and divine, the ephemeral and the eternal. At dusk, when the plateau is bathed in golden light and long shadows stretch across the sands, one can almost feel the Sphinx breathing in the centuries. Its endurance is a quiet lesson, that even as form succumbs to time, meaning can remain. That even in apparent fall, there is resilience, reflection, and the timeless presence of wonder. The Sphinx's story is not only one of erosion, but of dialogue with time, with nature, and with every pilgrim, traveler, and scholar who has come to witness its gaze. Its fall is a gentle reminder that even monuments, no matter how enduring, are part of the ongoing rhythm of the world, and that in recognizing decay, we find a deeper understanding of our own impermanence. Time leaves no monument untouched, and the Sphinx, despite its grandeur, bears this truth on every weathered inch. Its body, once pristine and commanding, now shows the traces of countless storms, centuries of wind and shifting sands. Yet even in its decay, it communicates with those who approach, a language of stillness, presence, and the enduring weight of history. Pilgrims and travelers over the ages have felt the Sphinx's quiet testimony. Some came in hope, others in awe, and a few in despair, seeking answers to questions that had no easy resolution. All felt, in their own way, the dialogue of stone and silence. They noted the cracks, the eroded lines of the face, and the missing pieces of a legacy once untouchable. And yet these signs of fall seem to deepen the monument's power rather than diminish it. Historical accounts speak of restoration attempts, from the hands of pharaohs to modern archaeologists. Sand was cleared, stones reinforced, fissures patched. Yet nature has its own rhythm, unhurried and patient. The wind continued its slow shaping, the sun continued to bake the limestone, and the desert continued to move in its own silent procession. Every attempt at preservation became part of the Sphinx's story, a testimony to human devotion, curiosity, and reverence. Legends arose to explain the Sphinx's weathered state. Some imagined it wept silently for the civilizations it had watched rise and fall. Others saw the erosion as a deliberate lesson, a reminder of impermanence and humility. Philosophers mused that even the most enduring creations of humankind are subject to decay, and that perhaps the Sphinx's grandeur lies not in flawless form, but in its ability to endure and inspire despite erosion. Its fall, however gradual, does not mark an end. The Sphinx's presence commands reflection. To gaze upon its weathered face is to witness centuries of history distilled into stone, to feel the persistent passage of time, and to understand the delicate balance between human ambition and natural forces. Each fissure and line tells a story of storms survived, sands shifted, empires passed, and devotion remembered. Even today, visitors sense its power. Standing before the Sphinx, one can feel the slow heartbeat of centuries, the quiet weight of time pressing gently against the soul. Shadows stretch across its form at sunrise and sunset, emphasizing the subtle erosion while highlighting the enduring majesty. The monument's fall becomes a meditation on resilience, the coexistence of strength and vulnerability, and the profound beauty found in imperfection. In the quiet desert night, when the wind whispers through the plateau, the Sphinx seems almost alive. Its silent gaze watches the horizon as it has for millennia. Its fall is evident in its form, but not in its presence. The monument endures, teaching patience, humility, and reverence. It reminds us that while physical forms may yield to time, the essence of meaning, memory, and wonder persists. And so, the Sphinx remains, a sentinel of history, a witness to decay, and a teacher of quiet endurance. Its fall is a gentle invitation to reflect on impermanence, to honor the past, and to recognize that even in erosion, there is wisdom, beauty, and eternal presence. The desert stretches endlessly, and the Sphinx, eroded yet unbowed, continues its vigil, a symbol of time, memory, and the enduring dialogue between stone, sand, and human wonder. Long before modern scholars examined its form, the Sphinx existed as a bridge between worlds, a figure at once human and animal, earthly and divine. Across ancient civilizations, it became a symbol that transcended borders, a witness to the ways humans sought to understand power, protection, and the mysteries of life itself. Its presence inspired stories, rituals, and interpretations that shifted subtly depending on who gazed upon it and the culture that embraced it. In the heart of ancient Egypt, the Sphinx was more than stone. Carved to stand guard near the Great Pyramids, it embodied the strength of kingship and the wisdom of gods. Pharaohs were often linked to its visage, their faces imagined in stone to reflect divine authority. To the Egyptians, it was a sentinel, holding silent counsel, and the wind through the desert carried prayers whispered by travelers across its pores. The monument itself became a living symbol of cosmic order, bridging human ambition and celestial power. Beyond Egypt, cultures found their own meanings in its form. The Greeks, captivated by its enigmatic gaze, crafted riddles and myths around the Sphinx, imagining it as both challenge and guardian. It became a figure of intellect and mystery, a test of human cunning. The story of Oedipus, who faced the Greek Sphinx and unraveled her riddle, spread across lands and centuries, cementing the Sphinx as a symbol not just of power, but of moral and intellectual pursuit. Even farther afield, travelers and traders carried tales of the Sphinx across deserts and seas. Merchants in distant lands spoke of its majesty. Scholars wrote of its enigmatic proportions, and poets wove its image into stories that blended observation with imagination. Each culture that encountered the Sphinx layered its own beliefs and interpretations upon it, creating a tapestry of meaning that shifted as it moved across time and space. In some regions, the Sphinx was seen as protective, a guardian that warded off evil and preserved sacred spaces. Its leonine body spoke of strength and ferocity, while the human head suggested wisdom, strategy, and insight. This duality fascinated ancient minds, inspiring temples, carvings, and sculptures that echoed the original. yet reflected local aesthetics and religious understanding. The form of the Sphinx became a universal symbol, adaptable yet unmistakable, a mirror for civilizations to project ideals, fears, and aspirations. Pilgrims, priests, and ordinary travelers all perceived it differently. To the devout, it was a channel to the divine. To the curious, it was a riddle and a challenge. To the artist and poet, it was beauty and proportion, inspiring works that would survive long after empires faded. Even the smallest gesture before the monument, a bow, a touch, a whispered word, became part of a dialogue that transcended language, culture, and time. Across centuries, the Sphinx endured the ebb and flow of civilizations. Some revered it, some neglected it, and some sought to understand its origins. Yet in every encounter, it demanded attention. It held a gaze that asked questions silently, urging observers to reflect on power, morality, mortality, and the divine. Its presence became a living record of human thought, belief, and imagination, a monument not only of stone but of collective consciousness. Even today, scholars and travelers marvel at the traces left by these ancient interpretations. Hieroglyphs, myths, and architectural echoes hint at how each civilization engaged with the Sphinx, revealing a remarkable consistency. Across borders and eras, it remained a guardian of meaning, a keeper of silence, and a bridge between the known and the unknowable. Standing before the Sphinx, one can sense these layers: the devotion of Egyptian priests, the curiosity of Greek philosophers, the wonder of distant travelers, all converging in the timeless presence of stone. It teaches that culture and imagination are inseparable from the monuments they revere, and that in its enduring gaze, we glimpse the continuity of human fascination with the mysteries that lie beyond understanding. As centuries passed, the Sphinx became more than a monument. It became a mirror for civilizations, reflecting their beliefs, fears, and aspirations. In Egypt, priests performed rituals at its feet, invoking protection for the land and its people, while kings sought to link themselves to its eternal gaze. Each ceremony, each offering, became a thread in the vast tapestry of devotion, binding humanity to stone and symbol in ways both subtle and profound. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks imagined the Sphinx as a test of intellect and morality. It was a creature of paradox, part beast, part human, challenging Oedipus to unravel its riddle. The story spread, carried in oral tradition and later written texts, influencing culture, theater, and philosophy. The Sphinx in this context was not merely a guardian of tombs or temples, but a guardian of knowledge, a symbol of the boundaries between human understanding and divine mystery. Even farther afield, in cultures that had no direct contact with Egypt or Greece, legends of a leonine guardian with a human face appeared. Travelers described it, traders shared stories, and artists reimagined it, merging imagination with fragments of knowledge. In each adaptation, the Sphinx retained its essence, a figure of strength, mystery, and silent wisdom, while absorbing the aesthetics and ideals of those who told its story. The duality of its form inspired countless interpretations. The lion's body represented courage, power, and vigilance, the human head, thought, reasoning, and reflection. Scholars suggest that this combination explained its enduring appeal. It embodied both instinct and intellect, might and understanding, the earthly and the divine. Ancient cultures revered it not only for what it was, but for what it represented, projecting onto its form ideals that guided, warned, or inspired. Pilgrims and travelers left their mark too. From inscriptions carved into nearby stones to sketches in notebooks, from offerings to whispered prayers, each gesture was a dialogue with the monument and the culture it represented. Even as empires shifted and languages changed, the essence of engagement remained constant. Humans approached the Sphinx with reverence, curiosity, and a desire to understand their place in the cosmos. The Sphinx also played a role in funerary and religious contexts. In Egypt, its image appeared in tombs, temples, and ceremonial art, often linked to divine kingship and protection of sacred spaces. In Greece, it became a moral symbol in myths, a puzzle that tested wit and courage. Across these cultures, it was both a protector and a challenge, a silent observer whose meaning shifted with the intent and imagination of those who encountered it. Even natural events contributed to the Sphinx's story. Erosion, shifting sands, and the changing Nile carved their own interpretations into its form. Some civilizations viewed these changes as omens, messages from the divine, or signs of time's inevitable passage. Others studied the monument with precision, seeking to preserve or understand its proportions, construction, and symbolism. The Sphinx thus became a nexus of human curiosity, belief, and observation, an enduring testament to the interplay of culture and nature. Through it all, the Sphinx remained silent, yet its silence spoke volumes. It taught patience, endurance, and the subtlety of observation. It reminded humans that meaning is not fixed, but layered, shaped by context, intention, and perception. In each culture, it was understood differently, yet always with awe, reverence, and the acknowledgement of something greater than oneself. Standing before it, one can sense these accumulated histories, the devotion of Egyptian priests, the moral tests of Greek philosophers, the wonder of distant travelers. Each layer contributes to the monument's presence, a living dialogue that stretches across millennia. The Sphinx is not merely stone. It is culture made tangible, history made silent, and mystery made visible. In the quiet of the desert, beneath the vast sky, the Sphinx remains a bridge across time, linking civilizations that never met yet shared reverence for its form. The Egyptians saw kings and gods. The Greeks saw riddles and moral lessons. Distant travelers imagined guardians of sacred knowledge. Across each culture, its presence endured, silent yet eloquent, a reminder that meaning is as much created by those who witness as by those who carve. Even as empires rose and fell, the Sphinx held its ground. Sandstorms swept across the plateau, storms softened its edges, and centuries passed with little notice, yet its gaze remained steadfast. Pilgrims and scholars alike returned through the ages, recording their impressions, leaving offerings, sketching its likeness. Each encounter, each reflection, became a thread in the ongoing tapestry of human interaction with the monument. Its silence was never emptiness. It was conversation without words, teaching patience, observation, and reverence. Legends accumulated around its form. Some believed it held secret knowledge, buried beneath the sands or encoded in its features. Others imagined it as a divine messenger, speaking not in language but in presence. Its dual form, human intelligence and leonine strength, inspired allegories about the harmony between reason and instinct, courage and contemplation. In every story, the Sphinx became a vessel for cultural ideals, a mirror in which civilizations could glimpse their highest aspirations and deepest fears. Art and architecture echoed its image. Temples, sculptures, coins, and pottery carried depictions inspired by the Sphinx, bridging regions and peoples. Even when misunderstood or mythologized, its essence persisted, a testament to the adaptability of symbols and the universality of wonder. The Sphinx became a language of its own, transcending speech, culture, and time, speaking directly to imagination and reflection. Pilgrims approached with expectation and humility. They left offerings, traced its outline, whispered questions, or simply observed. Each culture contributed to its aura, layering interpretation upon interpretation, yet the monument itself remained unchanged in its silent, monumental truth. It taught that meaning is living, evolving, and shared, and that the act of engagement itself is sacred. Modern scholars continue this dialogue, uncovering layers of history, analyzing proportions, and comparing myths. Yet even today, the Sphinx resists complete understanding. Its power lies in endurance, in mystery, and in the quiet recognition that some truths are felt rather than spoken. Every visitor, ancient or modern, contributes to its ongoing story, a story written in devotion, imagination, and reverence rather than ink or stone alone. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the desert, one can feel the weight of centuries pressing gently upon the soul. The Sphinx remains, witness to empires, observer of humanity, keeper of stories. Its form, though weathered, speaks across cultures, teaching that true understanding is not always explicit, but often arises in reflection, patience, and the act of observing. In the end, the Sphinx is more than stone. It is culture made tangible, history embodied, and mystery preserved. Across time and space, it continues to teach, inspire, and hum quietly with the presence of all who have sought meaning in its silent gaze. It is eternal not merely for its material, but for the endless dialogue it inspires, a guardian of human imagination, witness to our ever-evolving understanding of the world. The Sphinx has always inspired stories, whispered through time like wind across the desert. Its presence evokes awe, curiosity, and a desire to uncover secrets that may never fully reveal themselves. Even as centuries pass, the monument stands as a bridge between the past and present, between myth and observation, drawing explorers, scholars, and dreamers to its shadow. Each legend, each tale is layered upon the stone itself, creating a tapestry of imagination, devotion, and inquiry. In ancient times, the Sphinx inspired myth after myth. Some saw it as a guardian, silent yet watchful, protecting tombs, temples, or sacred knowledge. Others imagined it as a messenger, a creature that carried riddles and divine warnings to those who approached. Its human face and leonine body became a symbol of the harmony between intellect and instinct, courage and wisdom, the mortal and the divine. Stories spread across regions and generations, evolving with each teller, blending reality with imagination. As civilizations advanced, fascination deepened. Scholars of antiquity studied its proportions, noting the alignment of its form with celestial events or sacred geography. They recorded oral traditions and myths, preserving fragments of belief that might otherwise have faded. Explorers traversed deserts, mapping the surrounding plateau, uncovering artifacts and sketching the Sphinx in journals, their observations blending scientific curiosity with the wonder that had inspired legends for millennia. Modern discovery brought new layers of intrigue. Archaeologists unearthed remnants of ancient temples, hidden pathways, and the weathered remains of structures surrounding the Sphinx. Some theories proposed unknown chambers beneath its pores, while others suggested that erosion patterns hinted at a far older monument than previously believed. Each discovery sparked debate, fueling both scholarly study and popular imagination. The Sphinx became not only a relic of history, but a puzzle whose pieces were scattered across time, awaiting interpretation. Legends intertwined with these discoveries, amplifying fascination. Tales of secret tunnels, hidden treasures, and messages encoded in its proportions circulated widely. Some claimed that the Sphinx held lost knowledge, a record of civilizations older than Egypt itself. Others imagined cosmic connections, aligning its form with the stars or celestial events. Each story, whether based in evidence or imagination, added to the monument's enduring mystery, ensuring that it continued to inspire inquiry and reflection. Pilgrims, explorers, and scholars alike approached the Sphinx with reverence and curiosity. Some left records, inscriptions, or offerings. Others left only their impressions and awe. In all cases, the monument responded in silence, inviting contemplation rather than explanation, teaching patience and observation rather than providing clear answers. Its lessons are subtle, that mystery is enduring, that knowledge grows over time, and that human wonder is as important as empirical discovery. Even now, the Sphinx holds a presence that transcends material stone. Its form speaks of endurance, of the weight of centuries, and of the continuity of imagination. Every crack, every weathered line carries whispers of the past, hinting at stories untold and secrets partially revealed. Those who study it, visit it, or dream about it participate in a centuries-long dialogue, one that spans history, legend, and modern curiosity. Standing before the Sphinx today, one is struck by the convergence of myth and modernity. Scientific methods attempt to measure, date, and explain, while legends continue to inspire awe, creativity, and reflection. Together, these layers, empirical and imaginative, ancient and modern, create a living monument, one whose meaning is never static, whose story is never complete. The Sphinx continues to watch silently as human minds explore, imagine, and seek understanding, offering no answers but endless questions, and a reminder that mystery itself is a gift. The Sphinx, in its quiet grandeur, seems to invite exploration, yet it offers only hints, never full revelation. Beneath its pores, scholars and adventurers have speculated about hidden chambers, tunnels, or passages, each rumor blending history with imagination. Some theories suggest sacred repositories of knowledge, others speak of secret tombs, long swallowed by the sands. Regardless of truth, the idea of hidden spaces fuels curiosity and deepens the monument's enigmatic presence. For centuries, legends have intertwined with observation. Ancient Egyptians left inscriptions and symbols, whispering clues of spiritual significance. Greek travelers and writers wove riddles and stories into their accounts, imagining the Sphinx as both guardian and tester of wisdom. Medieval chroniclers added their interpretations, blending fact and fable, while modern explorers layered maps, sketches, and photographs atop these traditions. Every era contributed a chapter, and yet the Sphinx remains silent, inviting reflection rather than explanation. Modern archaeology has revealed much, yet many mysteries endure. The surrounding temples, fragments of statues, and remnants of ceremonial spaces offer glimpses of ritual, devotion, and human ingenuity. These findings suggest that the Sphinx was more than a solitary monument. It was central to a sacred landscape, a focal point of both religious and political significance. Yet the monument itself keeps its ultimate secrets, leaving gaps where imagination can wander freely. The erosion of its stone, once seen merely as a natural process, has sparked new theories. Some suggest it hints at civilizations older than Egypt, shaping speculation and debate among scholars and enthusiasts alike. Others propose that these patterns record climatic changes, a reminder of the subtle yet relentless passage of time. In every crack and scar, the Sphinx holds evidence of endurance, of mysteries partially revealed, and of the dialogue between human curiosity and natural processes. Legends have long followed explorers into the desert. Stories of curses, guardians, and lost treasures have persisted in whispers and texts, forming a parallel narrative to archaeological study. Even when disproven or questioned, these tales serve a purpose. They encourage reflection, imagination, and respect for the monument's age and presence. The Sphinx, therefore, exists not only as stone and history, but as a living symbol, where myth and evidence coexist in quiet tension. Pilgrims and tourists alike sense this layered meaning. Standing before the Sphinx, one may feel the weight of centuries of human engagement, prayers, studies, sketches, theories, and dreams, all converging in a single silent gaze. The monument teaches that mystery can coexist with knowledge, that imagination can flourish alongside observation, and that every generation adds its own layer to the story of a monument that refuses to reveal itself fully. Its celestial associations add another layer to its intrigue. Scholars have speculated on alignments with stars, solstices, and ancient calendars. Such connections suggest that the Sphinx may have been intended to bridge earth and sky, human and divine, temporal and eternal. Whether symbolic, functional, or coincidental, These alignments enrich the monument's story, inviting contemplation on the harmony between the heavens and human endeavor. Even today, the Sphinx continues to inspire creativity. Artists, writers, and dreamers are drawn to its form, finding in it a mirror of human curiosity and reverence. It remains a symbol of endurance, mystery, and the ongoing quest to understand, even as every attempt at full comprehension reminds us of the limits of human knowledge. The Sphinx does not answer questions directly. It teaches through presence, patience, and the subtle thrill of what remains unknown. The Sphinx, silent and enduring, continues to hold the fascination of humanity. Modern explorers bring advanced tools, ground-penetrating radar, 3D imaging, and precise measurements, yet the monument resists complete revelation. Even as new discoveries are made, the Sphinx seems to keep certain truths just out of reach, reminding us that some mysteries exist not to be solved, but to inspire reflection and wonder. Legends and scientific inquiry coexist here, shaping a rich tapestry of understanding. Ancient tales speak of secret chambers beneath its pores, treasures hidden from human eyes, or knowledge preserved through the centuries. Modern investigations probe these claims, revealing structural features, potential cavities, or patterns in erosion, yet rarely confirm the fantastic stories. This interplay between myth and evidence is part of the Sphinx's enduring appeal. It encourages curiosity while preserving its silent authority. Researchers have noted peculiar weathering patterns, sparking debates about climate, age, and lost civilizations. Some suggest these marks point to eras far older than traditional timelines, hinting at knowledge of history buried in stone and sand. Others interpret them as natural consequences of wind, rain, and time. In both cases, the Sphinx stands as a reminder that even in certainty, there is room for imagination, and that observation alone cannot fully capture the essence of the monument. The Sphinx's role in culture and imagination continues to expand. Artists depict it in paintings and digital art, authors weave it into stories, and travelers share personal encounters and reflections. Every generation adds new layers of meaning, blending the ancient with the modern, fact with legend, the real with the imagined. Its gaze, weathered yet unwavering, seems to embrace both the scientific and the poetic, uniting those who seek knowledge with those who seek wonder. Pilgrims of the past, scientists of today, and dreamers of all eras approach the Sphinx with reverence. Some leave footprints in the sand, others leave records in journals or databases. All contribute to the ongoing dialogue between humanity and this ancient monument. The Sphinx listens silently, yet through its presence, it teaches the same lesson as always: that patience, curiosity, and reflection are pathways to understanding, even when answers remain elusive. Even the stars seem to acknowledge its presence. Celestial alignments, whether intentional or coincidental, connect the Sphinx to the greater cosmos. It stands at the intersection of earth and sky, time and eternity, human ambition and natural forces. This connection deepens its mystery, reminding observers that the monument exists not only in the desert, but also in thought, imagination, and the collective memory of humanity. As night falls, the Sphinx is bathed in moonlight, shadows stretching across the sands. It seems to breathe with history, whispering stories that cannot be fully known, only felt. Every crack, every eroded line is a testament to centuries of observation, devotion, and imagination. In its silence lies the power to inspire, to provoke thought, and to remind us that the journey toward understanding is as valuable as any answer. The Sphinx, through legends and modern discoveries, teaches endurance. It bridges the past and present, science and myth, reality and dream. Its form, both human and leonine, embodies the balance of intellect and instinct, knowledge and mystery. Even as researchers continue to probe, and myths continue to evolve, the monument remains eternal, a guardian of curiosity, a keeper of wonder, and a reminder that some questions are meant to guide the heart and mind, rather than provide definitive answers. In the end, the Sphinx invites every observer into a quiet conversation with history, legend, and imagination. It challenges, inspires, and comforts, reminding humanity that mystery is not absence, but presence, that the unknown is not void, but a space for reflection and reverence. And so, the Sphinx continues, timeless and enduring, whispering to all who come seeking insight, connection, and the quiet thrill of what remains just beyond understanding. The desert stretches endlessly, waves of sand rolling softly beneath the sun, carrying whispers that may have begun thousands of years ago. The Sphinx rests quietly upon the plateau, its leonine body coiled in stillness, its human face gazing across the horizon. In its silence, it cradles countless voices lost to time, prayers of pharaohs, spoken with reverence and devotion, offerings left with intention, words of awe murmured by pilgrims who came from distant lands, hoping to glimpse something beyond the ordinary. Every gesture left behind, a touch to the stone, a whispered name, a footprint in the sand, becomes part of a tapestry woven with devotion and curiosity. Travelers' tales, mythic interpretations, and religious rites all add layers of meaning, converging in the quiet presence of the monument. The Sphinx listens, absorbing these voices without judgment, preserving them not in ink or stone, but in the subtle, enduring energy of remembrance. Even the wind carries echoes of human longing, rustling across ancient sands as though the desert itself participates in the dialogue. Each grain of sand holds fragments of footsteps and whispers, and each echo reminds us that history is not merely recorded in text, but experienced in moments of presence and attention. The Sphinx has borne witness to this across centuries, quietly preserving the rhythms, hopes, and reflections of those who sought connection. As centuries passed, new voices joined the chorus. Scholars, explorers, and artists arrived with notebooks, sketches, and instruments, seeking to measure, understand, and document. Their words are softer than the winds of the desert, but they add new depth to the story of the Sphinx, layering observation atop legend, fact atop imagination. Each step taken near the monument, each measurement recorded, each interpretation offered, becomes part of the monument's living memory. Legends and myths intertwined with these efforts. Some told of hidden chambers beneath its pores, secret messages carved into its stone, or knowledge preserved by civilizations older than recorded history. Others imagined cosmic alignments, whispering of a bridge between earth and sky, between mortal curiosity and divine order. Even when these stories cannot be verified, they enrich the monument's presence, offering pathways for reflection and imagination. The Sphinx in all this remains patient. It absorbs both praise and speculation, devotion and inquiry. Its gaze does not waver. It teaches through its silence, reminding all who approach that mystery has value, and that some truths are understood not in certainty, but in contemplation. Each visitor contributes a voice, a memory, a reflection, and in doing so becomes part of a chorus that stretches across time, blending with the prayers, tales, and dreams of those who came before. Even today, the voices continue. Modern travelers, archaeologists, and dreamers stand before the Sphinx, their cameras, journals, and whispers joining the centuries-old dialogue. Each observer senses something both tangible and elusive, a monument that teaches endurance, reflection, and wonder. Its silence is not absence, but presence, a gentle reminder that the stories of humanity are layered and continuous, and that the past lives on in subtle ways, felt rather than spoken aloud. Time has weathered its stone, yet not its spirit. Each crack and worn surface carries history, bearing witness to devotion, curiosity, and imagination. Every legend, every sketch, every inquiry contributes to the monument's ongoing narrative. In this, the Sphinx becomes more than a stone figure. It is a vessel for human thought, a keeper of memory, a guardian of voices that cannot otherwise endure. Standing in the desert, one might close their eyes and imagine the multitude of voices that have gathered here over millennia. Some are long forgotten, some imagined, some preserved in the sands, and yet all are present in the quiet rhythm of the Sphinx's eternal gaze. And in this moment of stillness, the listener becomes part of the chorus as well, adding their own reflection, their own wonder, to the timeless dialogue. The Sphinx endures, and with it, so do the countless voices lost in time.